Today we are going to learn really important topic, that is the difference between SQL databases and NoSQL databases, and we are going to enter into the NoSQL databases. And from tomorrow we are going to discuss a MongoDB. Okay, but this is very important interview question. Suppose if you just added these skills in your resume, definitely you will get this question like just explain what is the difference between a SQL databases and NoSQL databases. And there are lots of misconceptions about the NoSQL databases, so that at least I will try to clarify those details. Okay, sorry for the background noise. Bear with me for a few minutes. Okay, before that, team, are you ready to understand what's the difference between SQL and NoSQL?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hopefully you
Yes,
have
sir.
done at least
Yes, sir.
basic practice about SQL databases, because we have done some sessions about MySQL. We have created tables. We understand what is the importance of foreign key, all those things, right? So I will try to explain step by step. Just please focus on these topics. So first, let's see what are the great advantages with SQL, and at the same time what are the problems with SQL. So first we can discuss about the advantages of SQL. Okay, SQL, like these are the really primary databases for us. So you can store data in the form of tables, and we can maintain the relationship between the tables with the help of primary key and foreign key. Even you can split data into hundreds of tables, and you can maintain the relationship. That is the strongest thing, and so that you will get more security, and you will maintain the data in a proper way. So that is a great asset of relational databases. Okay, we understand the few relational databases, that is MySQL and Oracle and SQL's server. These are the most popular SQL databases. And when it comes to the disadvantages, so if you see, initially majority of the data will be there in the SQL, like relational databases. We will store the data in a tables and rows, but slowly, from especially from 1995, after that the data is growing because of Facebook and Google and the social media applications, and even everyone in the world started using mobile, so that users are also adding lots of data to the servers. So the things are changing. So at the same time problems are came. So if you see, whenever you want to get some data from a SQL database, suppose the data about the employee is in three tables or four tables or five tables and 10 tables sometimes. And if you want to get the data that from multiple tables, we will use the joins, right? So whenever you are using joins, so it will take some time to bring the data from the multiple tables and execute the queries, so that it will take some time. So at the same time, it is not always possible. What I'm saying, it is not always possible to store data in a relational manner. Okay, so if you see videos, if you see online streaming applications are there, like suppose now we are watching cricket World Cup in a Hotstar, and we are watching Amazon Primes, and lots of the streaming content is there, and even Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp users are adding like data in a different formats. So it's not that much easy to store data in a tables like a rows and columns all the time. So that the industry started thinking about, like, we should come up with some new plans. Okay, this is one thing is, so whenever we store the data in a multiple tables, and if you want to fetch the data from those tables, we need to use the joins, right? We need to use the joins so that we can get the data. whenever we use the joins, it will take some time to process it and get the results. That is one disadvantage. And another one is, okay, you can discuss one by one. Suppose if you see, we have a server, and that we are using a database. Okay, we are using database. So just imagine, for example, I'm saying, suppose, for example, that server capacity is 10 GB. I'm just saying, like, for example, 10 GB, and the database is occupying 2 GB. Okay, database occupying 2 GB for the initial stage. Initially, your application has only 100 users or 1000 users. So at the time, this is enough. This 2 GB memory for the database is enough, and to process everything like RAM and everything like the server's configuration is enough. But what happened gradually, if your user count, suppose from 1000 to 10,000 or 1 lakh users are coming, and at the time, if this memory is not enough. I'm saying, for example, if you have a 2 GB of memory for the server, like a database in the server, so if you want to serve properly to these 1 lakh users, what we need to do? We should increase the capacity, right? Yes or no? Team, do we need to increase the capacity or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because you have no option. You have to agree with me now. So yeah, we need to increase the size of the database. Okay, after some days, like, we have multiple users, and users are using daily, and we are getting lots of data. They are storing lots of data. They are asking a lot of data at a time. Even this capacity is also not enough. So if you see that the total server capacity is 10 GB, and if you start increasing the capacity of the database, and after some certain situation, you can't find the free space on the server, right? You can't find the space. Okay, so that is a problem. Means we don't have an option. Suppose normally what we will do in a nowadays, we have a cloud technology, right? AWS is there, and Microsoft Azure is there. Do you aware of these things? AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you see, okay, what is the advantage of these cloud technologies means, okay, you can store. So for example, so if you see, usually we will call as a data centers, right? So normally in Hyderabad, Amazon has one data center, Microsoft has one data center, and so in different countries, they have their data centers, right? So suppose we have an application, and we are using a server, and we are using the SQL database. Okay, suppose we have hosted, because this is American company, we have hosted this application on a server which is there in USA. Okay, which is there in USA. So if we have our database in that USA server like a data center, so it is not possible to store the data of this application into multiple locations actually. So whenever we are using the relational databases, RDBMS, it's not that much easy, because it will be very cost effective. Okay, and it is not that much easy because we are storing the data in a relational manner, and every table somewhat it is have a relation between another tables, so that we can't store uh, same table data into multiple locations. Okay, that is not possible with a relational database management system. So that in this fast forward situations in the world, we need an alternative solution to improve the speed of the application like a database management system. At the same time, we can call this as a vertical scaling. Okay, I will explain in detail because it's not that much easy to understand in a beginner level. Okay, we can, what we can call this is vertical scaling. So this RDBMS, like relational database management systems, if you want to increase the capacity of the database, okay, you need to increase the capacity of the same server. So that is called vertical scaling. Means you can do at the same place. You want, if you want, you can increase the capacity of this server, and you need to attach 2 or 3 servers at the same place, and you need to configure properly. But when it comes to NoSQL, we can store the data of the same database into multiple places, multiple locations. So that is a great advantage. Okay, that we can discuss again. So what I told you, at least 2 things. One is, if you store the data in a multiple tables, and whenever we try to retrieve the data, we should use the joins, right? Because we are maintaining the relationship and the data is split into multiple tables. So at the time, the speed definitely will reduce, because getting the data from the one table, suppose if it takes 1 second, for example, I'm saying 1 second. Suppose if you want to get the data from 3 4 tables with these relations, definitely it will take 2 seconds at least. Okay, I'm saying, okay, for example, I'm saying, so definitely it will be more uh, time, it will consume the more time, so that performance will slow. So but SQL relational databases has its own advantages, because we can avoid the duplicate data. At the same time, it will, these are more secure databases, like 99% of the banks will use the relational databases now also. So it has its own advantages, but we can't use same relational databases for all the applications. Okay, for some certain applications, for some requirements, yes, still in 2023 or even in future also, relational databases are really strong. But for online streaming applications, or suppose the WhatsApp, or like Instagram kind of applications, we can use the NoSQL databases. Okay, so far, yeah, do you have any questions so far before entering into the NoSQL things? Understood at least what I'm saying? What did Mayur?
Sorry, sir, my internet was not working fine.
Sorry?
My internet is not working fine.
Okay, fine. What about remaining people? Can I explain one more time in Telugu? That is also fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I will explain in Telugu for 2 minutes. Who don't know Telugu, you can fast forward. If you want to learn Telugu, just wait for 2 minutes. సో ఇప్పుడు చూడండి, మన డేటాబేస్ ఉంది కదా. ఓకే, నేను నమ్ముతున్నాను మీరు ప్రాక్టీస్ చేశారు అనుకుంటున్నాను. ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయకపోతే అర్థం కాదు డెఫినెట్గా. సో మనం రిలేషనల్ డేటాబేసెస్లో ఏం చేస్తాం? టేబుల్స్లో స్టోర్ చేస్తామా శ్వేత? మల్టిపుల్ టేబుల్స్లో.
Yes, sir.
సో మనం ప్రైమరీ కీ, ఫారెన్ కీ యూజ్ చేస్తాం కదా. అలాంటప్పుడు ఒకటి ఇప్పుడు ఒక సపోజ్ ఒక అమెజాన్ లాంటి అప్లికేషన్ ఉంది అనుకోండి. దాంట్లో ఒక యూజర్స్ డీటెయిల్స్ ఏమవుతాయి? యూజర్స్, అతను చేసిన ఆర్డర్ డీటెయిల్స్, ఆ ప్రోడక్ట్ డీటెయిల్స్, అలా ఒక 30 to 40 టేబుల్స్ ఉంటాయి. ఆ 30 to 40 టేబుల్స్ని మనం రిలేషన్స్ మెయింటైన్ చేస్తాం విత్ ఫారెన్ కీ. సో అప్పుడు మనకు ఒక యూజర్కి సంబంధించిన మొత్తం డేటా ఒకసారి డిస్ప్లే చేయాలనుకోండి, మనం ఏం చేయాలి? జాయిన్స్ యూజ్ చేయాలి. సో మీరు ప్రాక్టీస్ చేశారా జాయిన్స్ అనేది?
ఐడియా ఉంది సార్, బట్ ఇప్పట్లో
ఓకే.
చేయలేదు.
సో ఏమవుతుంది, మన జాయిన్స్ అంటే ఏం లేదు, మనం మల్టిపుల్ టేబుల్స్ నుంచి డేటా రిట్రీవ్ చేయడానికి రాసే క్వైరీని మనం జాయిన్స్ అంటాం. ఆ ఎస్క్యూఎల్ క్వైరీలో జాయిన్స్ యూజ్ చేస్తాం. సో అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే, మనం ఇప్పుడు మల్టిపుల్ టేబుల్స్లో ఉన్న డేటాను తీసుకురావాలంటే ఏమవుతుంది, న్యాచురల్గానే ఎక్కువ టైం పడుతుంది కదా. ఎస్ ఆర్ నో?
ఎస్ సార్.
దట్ ఈస్ వన్ డిసడ్వాంటేజ్. అలాగే ఇప్పుడు ఒక సర్వర్ ఉంది. సపోజ్ మీరు ఒక కంపెనీ స్టార్ట్ చేసింది అనుకోండి. ఫస్ట్ ఒక సర్వర్లో ఇప్పుడు మీకు ఆ సర్వర్లో ఉన్న 30% కెపాసిటీని మీరు యూజ్ చేస్తారు అనుకుందాం డేటాబేస్కి, డేటా స్టోర్ చేయడానికి. సో గ్రాడ్యువల్గా ఏమవుతుంది, మీ అప్లికేషన్ గ్రో అయ్యే కొద్దీ యూజర్స్ డేటా ఎక్కువ స్టోర్ చేసినప్పుడు ఈ 30% మెమరీ సరిపోదు అనుకోండి. అప్పుడు ఏం చేయాలి మీరు? ఇంకా ఎక్కువ మెమరీ
ఇంకా
అనేది
యాడ్ చేయాలి
అలొకేట్
మెమరీ.
చేయాలి. సో అయితే మనం ఏంటంటే, ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడైతే సర్వర్ ఉందో అక్కడే మనం ఇంక్రీజ్ చేయగలుగుతాం. సో ఇక్కడే మనం ఏం చేయాలి, ఈ సర్వర్ యొక్క కెపాసిటీ పెంచుతూ వెళ్ళాలి. సో అదే అలా. కానీ మనం ఈ సర్వర్ని, అంటే మన డేటాని ఇప్పుడు యుఎస్లో ఒక సర్వర్ ఉంది, ఇండియాలో ఒక సర్వర్ ఉంది. సో ఈ డేటాని యుఎస్లో ఉన్న సర్వర్లో 50%, ఇండియాలో ఉన్న సర్వర్లో 50% స్టోర్ చేయడానికి కుదరదు. అర్థమైందా?
ఆ! తర్వాత మీరు ఏడబ్ల్యూఎస్ గురించి తీసుకొచ్చారు కదా సార్.
ఏడబ్ల్యూఎస్లో ఏమవుతుంది, ఏడబ్ల్యూఎస్ అంటే ఏంటి, క్లౌడ్ ప్లాట్ఫామ్స్ కదా. సో వాళ్ళు ఏం చేశారు, ఇక్కడ డేటా సెంటర్స్ ఓపెన్ చేశారు అంతేనా. హైదరాబాద్లో ఒక పెద్ద సర్వర్ ఉంటుంది, యుఎస్లో ఒక సర్వర్ ఉంటుంది, ఇవన్నీ డేటా సెంటర్స్. ఓకే, so we have data centers of AWS in different locations in the world. So what happens, you can store, suppose NoSQL databases, what will happen, you can store 50% of data in India and 50% of the data in what, yes,
యూఎస్
but that is not possible with
ఎస్క్యూఎల్ ఐ థింక్.
SQL databases. Okay, if you understand this much, that is enough. Okay, what about remaining people? Understood? Can I explain in Hindi?
Yes, sir, you can.
I can't speak in Hindi, sorry.
Just try once, sir.
No, it will be blunder.
You will explain in Hindi, sir.
Okay, चले मैं ट्राई करते हैं. ओके, अब
Yeah,
देखो, आप लोग सीखा ना एसक्यूएल सर्वर,
Yes, sir.
शायद आप लोग प्रैक्टिस किया. ओके, तो इसमें क्या करते हैं, सो हम लोग डेटा मल्टीपल टेबल्स में स्टोर करते हैं ना. तो आपको डेटा चाहिए तो क्या करना है, अब जॉइंस यूज करना है. ओके, अब जॉइन यूज करने के टाइम क्या होता है, द परफॉर्मेंस स्लो होता है. इसके लिए आप मल्टीपल टेबल से डेटा लाने का ट्राई करना है ना, कोशिश कर रहे हैं. तो उसके लिए जॉइंस, आप जॉइन यूज करें तो परफॉर्मेंस स्लो हो जाता है. ये पहला ड्रॉबैक है.
Yes.
तो दूसरा, आप सपोज आपका कैपेसिटी इनिशियल, आप कंपनी शुरुआत करने के टाइम यूजर्स कम होते हैं ना, 1000 यूजर्स और 10,000 यूजर्स होते हैं. सो ये स्पेस शायद हाँ एनफ, बट बाद में लाइक 1 साल बाद और 2 साल बाद आपका एप्लीकेशन अच्छा चले तो यूजर्स ज़्यादा होता है, उसी के टाइम में क्या होता है, आपका ये स्पेस
बढ़ जाता है.
बढ़ना चाहिए, राइट, स्पेस बढ़ना चाहिए. तो उसी के टाइम में क्या होता है ना, आपका सर्वर है ना, आपका सर्वर यूएस में है तो एक लोकेशन एक जगह में है, तो सो आप इसी जगह पे सर्वर को कैपेसिटी बढ़ाने के कर सकते हैं. बट ये क्या होता है, ये वर्टिकल स्केलिंग. सो एक ही जगह सर्वर द कैपेसिटी ऑफ डेटाबेस ज़्यादा कर सकते हैं. बट ये क्या होता है ना, कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव होता है, ये भी दूसरा प्रॉब्लम है. तो ये सिचुएशन में नो एसक्यूएल का कॉन्सेप्ट आया.
ठीक है.
क्या अभी समझ गया?
जी बिल्कुल सही समझा सर.
ओके, थैंक यू. हाउ इज
बहुत
माय
आपकी सर हिंदी तो बहुत ही अच्छी, बहुत ही ज्यादा अच्छी है, मेरे से भी ज्यादा अच्छी है.
झूठ मत बोलो.
नहीं सर, झूठ नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, तभी तो आपने कोई मिस्टेक ही नहीं की, तो मैं क्या बोलूँ, झूठ कैसे बोलूँ, किसी से भी पूछ लो, मयूर से पूछ लो, आप मयूर हिंदी
हाँ
जानते
सर, अच्छा बोला सर.
ओके, थैंक यू. मैं मुंबई में काम किया
हैं.
4 साल, सो थोड़ा थोड़ा सीखा, बट आई एम नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट.
बट सर आपकी हिंदी तो बिल्कुल ही अच्छी है, बहुत अच्छी है.
चलेगा. तो थैंक्स फॉर कॉम्प्लीमेंट. बट अभी इंग्लिश में शुरुआत करते हैं.
यस
So अब ये ना,
यस.
so now, so okay, we have a problem with SQL. Okay, it's not a big problem for all the application. Of course, for banking system we need more security. That doesn't mean NoSQL will give a less security. But either in SQL you will get like complete control, because here we will use a schema, and we will use relationships, and we will, okay, the biggest problem is we can't split databases into multiple servers or multiple locations. That's the biggest problem. So, and one more thing here, suppose if you see, whenever you create a table in a SQL server, if you want to insert any data into any SQL server, you need a schema, right? We are already understood, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
You should have a schema because you should create a table with proper column name and data type and relationship. And if you want to add a new column, again you need to change the schema before adding the new column. So understand carefully. I will tell you one more interesting thing. Sometimes what will happen, suppose if you have a 20 columns, sometimes user will insert two columns data. Sometimes he will insert three columns data. Sometimes he will insert five columns data. Some other user will insert only one. Of course, if you put a not null or if it is a mandatory, definitely he will update the details. But suppose if you don't have a mandatory columns, sometimes user may upload only few columns of data. At the time, it's really difficult, right? It will have lots of blocks, right? The memory will be waste, right? Understood my point? So suppose username is there. Suppose for example, username is there, mobile number, email ID, these are the mandatory fields, address 1, address 2, and preferred location 1, 2, 3, or like that. We will maintain lots of columns, right? So one user can upload only address 1. Okay, some user don't have address 2, that's why he will make it empty, right? So that we will get lots of memory waste also in a SQL databases. Suppose if you don't fill that column data, it will be null, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So like the memory is very costly, right? At least previously, at least 10 years back, memory is really, really costly. Now, at least it is somewhat cheaper than 10 years back. So fine. So now we can discuss about the NoSQL and how this NoSQL is working, so that we can understand the difference between SQL and NoSQL. So here, here, simply, I want to explain one misconception about the NoSQL. Okay? NoSQL. So normally, many people thinks that NoSQL means it is completely opposite. Okay, SQL means yes, it is based on relational
RDBA.
database. Yes, this is 100% relational database. Okay, so NoSQL means many people will think that okay, it is completely not not SQL. That means it's not possible to maintain the relationships, or we should not maintain any relationship. Okay, that is completely wrong. So normally people will call NoSQL as not SQL and not only SQL. Okay, okay, I will suggest you this one. What is that? Not only SQL. Yes, because we have a problem with the relational database. It's really difficult if you maintain relation between lots of tables. Yes, we should come out of that relational databases approach, but that doesn't mean NoSQL is not going to support any relationships. Okay, that is wrong. So we can, if you want, you can maintain the relationships, but normally if you want to maintain the relationships, it's better to go with the SQL databases, relational databases. So whenever it is very difficult to prepare the architecture or the design of the database for just maintaining all the relationships, and it's very difficult to store the data in relational manner, at that time we will use the NoSQL databases. Okay, here we have lots of, majorly we have four things. One is we can store information in our documents. Okay, another one is key value. Okay, another third one is okay, column based approach, and the fourth one is nodes action. Okay, there are four types of non-relational databases or not only SQL databases. Okay, the majorly because there are few more other types also there, but these are the most important things. Just can anyone repeat this one? What are the types of NoSQL?
It's like documents, key value pair, columns, and nodes.
Column based databases are there, and we can store the data in the form of nodes and key value pairs. It's like a JavaScript objects. Documents also here more or less it's a JSON document. Okay. So it's like almost JavaScript object, right? If you have a data in a JSON, it's completely close to a JavaScript object, right? So it's really easy for us to get the data which is there in a JSON format. So we can store the data in the form of documents. Okay, I will give you one example because here the MongoDB is the most popular and powerful database, okay, of which is using documents to store the data. Okay, we have other databases which are following key value pairs and column based on nodes. Okay, I will suggest you this is the really super documentation, so please read out. Okay, read this documentation, and documentation, reading the documentation is the very important habit every developer, every programmer should adapt it. Okay, if you don't have a habit of reading the documentation or learning things from the documentation, it's really difficult to survive in the IT industry. So please utilize your time. Fine. Just a minute. Just a minute. Here, okay, the MongoDB follows the document. It will store the data in the JSON format. Okay. Now I will tell you one simple example. Suppose I will give a scenario. For that scenario, we'll store the data in a SQL databases, and I will show you how we can store the data in a NoSQL database like a MongoDB in the form of JSON, and how it is helpful. Okay, so that you will understand at least advantage of NoSQL. Okay, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
I think I've read somewhere, but it's difficult to find now. I will explain. So if you see, for example, the requirement is users data and how many orders he has done. So that naturally in a SQL database, what we have done, we have created users table and we have created orders table, and we have maintained one primary key like a user ID, and we have stored the same user ID in the orders table, and we have maintained the primary key and foreign key relationship, so that the information about the users and his orders details, we have split it into two tables. Okay, understood or not? Because we have done a practice on this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so suppose if you have the same situation and if you want to store the data in a MongoDB. Okay, MongoDB is a NoSQL database, and it will follow storage of data in a JSON format. So here I will tell you, suppose if you have the user data. So in MongoDB, we can store the entire user's details, a particular user detail and order details in a same document. So here I'm writing user ID, suppose 101, and suppose name, I'm just taking a simple name Vijay, age like 25, okay, and email ID or phone number, you can store that information. After that, if you want to store the order details, so if you see, you can store orders like this or not. Yes or no? Is it possible?
Yeah, possible.
Yes, sir.
Suppose if you have a multiple orders, yeah, you can store the data in an array. In that array, so first order you can store in one object, and second order you can store in another object. Because if you have 10 orders, you can store in 10 orders. So now tell me, suppose if you see, we have stored the entire user details. Suppose users details at the same time his order details in the same document, that is there in a JSON format. So here, if you want to get the details of a particular user and his order details, you need to add a join between users and orders table so that you will get the results. So here you no need to add any joins. You no need SQL actually. You no need to do structured query language. You don't need to use any query language actually. So just like a JavaScript or any other programming language, very simple manner we can get the data. So suppose if this is a JSON object, okay, we know, right? If you got the JSON data, you can convert into JavaScript object and you can filter the data, right? Yes or no? So it is very fast. Now tell me, understood or not? Advantage of NoSQL databases with one example.
Yes, sir, got it.
Everyone should say understood or not. If you didn't understand, I will explain one more time.
Understood, sir.
Now,
Understood, sir.
okay, good. I will tell you one more thing. So, in the previous discussion, we said, right, if you want to split the data into multiple servers, it's not possible with the relational databases because we have a relation between the tables. So now, if you see, when it comes to the NoSQL databases, so if you see, there is a server in USA and another server in India. So I'm storing first 1,000 users details in USA server and next 1,000 users details in a India server. Is there any problem for us? Tell me, is there any problem?
No, sir.
No, because the the data which is there in USA server has no dependency on the data which is there in India server, right? So that if you want to get the data of these users, so of course in between we will maintain like so suppose if you want to get this record, we should add some logic to go and get from USA, and if you want to get the data from 1001 to 2000, go and get from India. Okay, so it's not the same thing like in a real time. So there is a concept called sharding. So this is possible in a what? No SQL databases. So there is no structure, right? There is no fixed structure. And even observe carefully. So we understand two things. One is if you store the data in a document format, you can fetch the data in a very fast manner. And one more thing, because this is the first advantage. And second advantage is you can split the data into multiple servers and multiple locations. Okay, we understand two advantages. Got it, everyone? Let me go with the third advantage.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you see here, when it comes to SQL servers, I have written that. So when it comes to SQL servers, we should prepare the schema or not.
Yes, sir.
So
No, sir.
before creating a table, before inserting the data, we should have a schema, right? Fixed schema. Yes, right? So in MongoDB, you don't need to maintain that schema. Suppose if you want to store users details here, even you can store, suppose product details. So product details is another object. Here you don't have any user ID or something. Suppose randomly I want to store product ID or something and product name, product price. Okay, you can store in a same databases, same database. Okay, here the terminology will be different. I will tell you one small thing. Otherwise, you will get some confusion. So here we have databases, and then we have tables, right? And then rows and columns. So when it comes to especially MongoDB and NoSQL MongoDB, so here of course we have databases, but here instead of tables, what we can call it as collections. Got it? What it is? The equivalent to tables here it's a collection because you can collect the documents, right? Suppose if you have a cupboard, you can add a t-shirt, you can add a pant, even you can add toys, anything you can add it. But here in a SQL databases, if it is a table, you can add only employee details. Employee table means you can add only employee details. So here collections, it's like a cupboard. You can add any files. Okay. Okay. Of course, very soon we are going to learn everything practically so that you will understand clearly. But just understand the equivalent thing for a tables is the collection, and here the data rows and columns. Right here, this is a document. Got it? What is the equivalent for tables in a NoSQL MongoDB?
Collections.
For a rows and
Collection.
rows, like an
Document.
information is a document.
Document.
Yeah. So if you see here, the third thing is here as a row as an information. If it is a employee details, if it is employee, you can store only employee details. It is not going to allow other details, right? But in this collection, in this collection, it will allow to store. You can add employee document. You can add order document. You can add student document. It doesn't throw any error. So it will collect all the documents in a one collection. Later, if you want, you can fetch. Of course, everything has a unique ID, of course. So based on that, you can collect it. But you can ask a question like, hey Raghu, because this is the table, why I will add employee details and order details and student details at the same place? Okay, normally we don't add in that way, but it will allow. It will allow. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Another advantage is, suppose if you see in employee, it will store how many. Suppose if it has a 20 columns, okay, 20 columns. Suppose we have inserted 5 rows and one employee have 5 columns data, and another employee have only 6 columns data. Another employee has only 3 columns of data. Mandatory data they have updated. So remaining here 15 columns data is null. Here 14 columns data is null, and here 17 columns is data is null. Of course, employee ID and suppose some important fields or mandatory. That's why he has entered. Remaining details he didn't enter actually. So that everything is a null and it is just have a holes there. But here the beauty of this non-relational databases. Observe carefully. So I will end after this one. So if you see, first employee has only employee ID and the name and age. Age, that is fine. If you have only three details, just add the document. And if you have another document, in that document, suppose he has all the details. He has employee ID, EMP ID, the name is there. He has provided age, he has provided email, he has provided address details. Okay, that's no problem because yeah, you can store the second document as like this. And the third document, he has only employee ID and he has email ID. You don't have another details. So if you see, you can store, right? But here you're not going to waste any memory. Here it has blocks, right? Another person, another table or someone can't utilize this memory, right? In the disk of the hard disk. So it will be always null until unless this employee will update these details. But here, not like that. So if it is takes like 1 KB of data, that's fine. If it takes 1.5 KB of data, that is fine. Here, if it takes only 0.5 KB of data, that is fine. But here, so for each and every employee, for example, for each and every row, if it is 2 KB, all 5 tables, whether you have updated data or not, it will always occupy how much space
2 KB for all, I mean, for each.
for each. If you update it, if you utilize it, okay. Otherwise, the waste of matter. But here, if you added only 3 columns, how much data it is required, that much only it will occupy. If you add more data, okay, I will allow you. If you add more data, it will allow you. So these are the advantage of what? No SQL databases. Okay, that, that doesn't mean we don't need a SQL database. Yes, for some situations we will use the relational databases, and some situations we should use NoSQL databases. Okay, that's all for today. Understood? I hope you guys understood a little bit, and if you didn't understand, don't worry. Please read this documentation. You will understand clearly. Actually, this is the beautiful documentation. Actually, so I think I just explained only 10% from this. Okay, thank you and see you tomorrow.